All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and depending on your time zone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Keith Fuller, and I'm going to be, for a brief period of time, hosting the webinar here. Really, my goal is to turn this over as quickly as possible to my friend Bryan Mashinter, who is a senior producer at fabulously successful mobile game studio in Boulder, Colorado, Backflip Studios. I first met Bryan a few years ago at the inaugural PAX Dev. I think was the first time that I found out who he was and promptly demanded that he allow me to take my picture with him, finding out that he'd been responsible for Ninjump, for Paper Toss, for so many of these titles that I had on my phone that very minute. For the past few years, I have been learning a ton from Bryan about how mobile games are developed, how to run teams in that environment, and watching as his own role developed at a company. I don't want to steal his thunder here, but he was one of the first employees at Backflip, I think number 13 or so, and they're well up into the dozens and dozens of employees now. So he's seen a lot of growth, been with the company for a while, and he has a lot of insights to share about producing successful social mobile titles and also navigating the occasionally very intriguing waters of company growth. So with all of that having been said, I am going to turn this over to my friend Bryan, and I believe he can regale us with the information that he has prepared for us. So take it away, Bryan.
Hey everybody, I'm Bryan Mashinter. As Keith said, we don't really go with senior or executive, we just producer. I don't know, we don't really bother too much with titles. I know that sounds super hipstery. We just never bothered with it because we were so small, and then as we grew we didn't change that too much. I want to openly admit this is my first webinar, and I'm crazy nervous. And I think because I can't see you. Cannot see my peoples, so I don't know how things are going. I don't even know if you can hear me right now, but I hope that you can. So I'm going to go through a bit of introduction. I'm going to go through a bit of disclaimer. Anything that I say is me and not representative of my bosses or at Backflip or Hasbro, and I think it's because I have a tendency to be maybe just a little on the edge of too honest sometimes, so I have to put that disclaimer out there. Would you agree with that, Keith? Yes, he would. I think he muted himself. The structure of the webinar, I kind of want to depend.
I did mute myself. I would.
It's okay. You don't have to jump in. The structure of the webinar is going to depend a little bit on questions and things that people ask. I may bumble around because I'm a little new to GoToMeeting, but I want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the people who are here. It looks like there's about 20 of us here, and so I want to make sure that I'm hitting the things that we all want to talk about. I'm looking for my questions tab and not seeing it, so if Keith or anybody wants to say something, feel free to put something in the chat. Because I think I opened something and put it off screen and now I can't find it, and I'm not going to take the time to do so. So a bit about me. We don't really have distinguishing titles like I mentioned, but I guess my claim to fame is that I was the original producer here at Backflip Studios. I joined the studio, it's true, when there was only 14 people. I lie to everyone and tell them that I was hire number 15, but in fact 3 of us started that day. And probably Chris Goody, who's one of my lead engineers, got the call before I did, so he was probably more likely 15, but who's counting? I took a bit of a crooked path to production. I was a math teacher, I was a bartender, a restaurant manager, a minister, a wrestling coach, not all at the same time. I've done a bunch of different things. It took me a while to figure some things out. I don't know how the path is for you, or if you're just starting on the journey and maybe a student, but it took me a while to figure some things out. The good news is that life experience really helped me in what I do now. I've been in mobile since about and P.S. my alarm just went off. I have a meeting. I've been in mobile since about 2005, although I didn't start in games. I started as a WAP developer. Anybody who's been in mobile a long time knows what WAP is. It's a wireless application protocol, and nobody ever bothers with it anymore. And I started at a company called 5280 Mobile here in Denver, Colorado. Well, I shouldn't say here. I guess I'm in Boulder right now, but I live in Denver. And as the company focus shifted, we started moving away from WAP development, and I moved into a production manager role. So what we did was we took like raw video from the NBA, and we would cut that up and then put that out to like mobile phones in the Ukraine because they wanted to see the dunk of the day or whatever. And so I learned a lot about mobile hardware limitations, brew applications, and then while I was doing that, the iPhone came out and really kind of captured my interest, and so I wanted to get into doing something with games. So I left there because they weren't going to do games quite as fast as I was hoping. I did some contract work with EA, with Riptide Games, with Leviathan Games, and then eventually I landed here at Backflip. Credentials. I love little bees. So we made games, if you're not familiar with Backflip, or what we do, we've done Dragon Veil, Ninjump, Paper Toss, Army of Darkness. Recently we did Dwarven Den, which just came out, and not to be, like super commercially, but these are the things that I've done. And then the Dragon Veil was the #1 top grossing iPad app of 2012. It was #4 on the iPhone. And then Ninjump and Paper Toss have over 100 million downloads each. Yeah, it's mobile development. And it's really weird when you say like 100 million downloads because you hear it's just such a different space from AAA where, I remember when 1 million units used to be like the biggest deal. And now if you don't get, you don't get 10 million users on mobile, you barely crack the top 10. By the way, all those numbers I'm kind of making up. So about mobile production and production in general, this is obviously the first production webinar Wednesday. Don't worry, they will only get better from here. So I thought I'd go into a little bit about production, my philosophy on production, talk a little bit about how mobile is a little bit different, how live teams can be different, and then I kind of want to open it up for questions. So I think there's a way to raise your hand. You guys are all probably much more familiar with this than I am, but Keith is in the chat and managing any questions. So if you have a question that comes up at all while I'm just yammering, feel free to write it down, throw it in chat, and then when it comes to Q&A time, we'll go through that. Yeah, so the title producer, and I mentioned it here in the bullet, it gets overstated, but it means different things to different people. And it means different things to different studios and different industries, and if I'm being really honest, it means something different here today than it did when I started. When I started, man, producer was project manager. I think I'm credited in our first title as project manager because that was kind of what I did. There was 15 people, right? And so my job is they were just getting big enough where the title is typical, give yourself when you start your own company, right? You're like, I'm CEO and the only employee and the janitor. So those titles that you have when you first start to mean something when you start.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Keith here. I apologize for jumping in. The audio is starting to fall apart for us.
Okay.
I don't know if you're using a Bluetooth headset and you accidentally walked outside the building or something, but
no, I am staring at my machine, wired in, no issues.
Nothing new. Okay.
Still
Tristan, I believe Tristan's hearing this too. It's about it.
Okay.
Word on the street here, Keith sounds fine, but Brian's mic might be a connection issue, is kind of what they're wondering.
It's actually built into my Mac, so there's no mic plugged in.
Okay, so I blame the fact that you're using a Mac. Oh, what just happened?
Right, you're getting staticky. It's when you talk. That's funny.
So it started off fine, and now it's falling apart. Are you on battery power? Or are you plugged in?
Plugged in. I should be good to go. I have made no changes since the moment I started.
Okay. Yeah, it's Tristan saying it's just when you're talking. So apparently mine sounds good, yours sounds not so hot to people. Although it started off fine. I thought it was crystal clear at that point.
Okay.
Do you have speakers active? Can you mute them?
The only speaker I have is, again, built into my Mac.
Built in.
Yeah, so let me do something here. Let's see if there's anything that can be done. I'm running essentially no programs. Just put my email. All right.
And for the attendees here that are patiently waiting as we work through this, we did actually have 3 of us organizers here online trying this out for a good 20 minutes prior to the start time to attempt to prevent and troubleshoot any just such issues. Much to think that split out organization, we did it, and everything was 5 for a good length of time.
All right, what about now? How are we doing? Oops. Yeah. All right, so this looks like the resounding success so far. They should never give me the power to mute Keith, because I totally just did. Tristan, can you hear me okay, or is it still static?
You are still staticky.
Okay, I have no idea what the issue might be. We were fine a while ago. I don't know if it's just crushing under the weight of all the people. What do you think? What should we do?
We can either try to cancel, like close the webinar and restart it, but then everybody would need to come back in. Or there's some people that say that to just go ahead and keep going. Because you are not, Keith's connection is really bad, but you still sound kind of like a robot, or staticky, but you are understandable.
All right, give me one more second to see if I can do something, and then I will go back. So, all right, sorry about that there. The only thing I can think is that maybe my backup is doing something weird. So let me hit that. I know, this is so much fun, right? What a great webinar.
There's some feedback from our panelists, from our attendees. You could try calling in, but it's not necessarily. You could dial in and use a phone instead. If you have a mic, you could try hardwiring a mic in, or maybe reset or like muting your internal speakers if you're able to do that.
If I did that, then I wouldn't be able to hear anyone or anything. So,
do you need to hear anything or anyone?
Occasionally. All right, so 1 second. I appreciate the encouraging comments. People are saying nice things. All right. Okay. Hey, there's Devin Mullins. Hey, Devin. Yeah, I apologize for not having backup mic and or speakers. This is all I've got, so I think I'm just going to keep going. Is that all right? It is now. Okay. So again, sorry for the delay, everybody. I apologize. I could maybe turn off my webcam, and that might actually help the audio. But then you wouldn't be able to see my beautiful beard, and I think that would, really just be a problem.
Yeah, they're really encouraging you to try to. They're really encouraging you to try to see if you can find something to plug in. If you have your iPhone, do you have iPhone?
Let's see what happens when I do this. This works, and we'll be super impressed. Don't think that this is picking it up.
Nope, there was still some feedback. You can try turning off your webcam.
What's that? Turning off webcam? Sure.
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
Okay, now
All
talk.
right, what do you think? How's that?
No, it's still there.
Still there. Still a problem. I apologize so profusely for this. We tested it and everything was fine. I got nothing. Somebody tell me what to do.
Let's just go with it. We'll try, maybe if it gets really bad, we'll reschedule you another time, but we'll plow through this one. I apologize, everybody, for this. Hi, I'm Tristan Hightower.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep going. Sorry for the robotic voice, and I can't see the questions thing, so I can only see the chat at the moment. So please use that.
I think we have found the culprit. Bryan has disconnected. So I think he must have been having something go on at work. I am going to mute myself and see if we can figure out what happened. Worst case, we will get this rescheduled. I apologize. Please hold. I don't have any fancy hold music for you, though. Should we place bets on if he is actually still giving the presentation and didn't realize he disconnected? Oh, hi, Bryan. Okay, let me try to promote you again to make organizer. All right. Bryan?
Hi.
Hey, you sound better.
Yeah, my computer crashed entirely, so whatever was going on was happening in the background. That's good times.
All right, well, there you go. You're all set. You can start your share, and we can try to go 40-minute presentation.
Oh, man. Okay. So, I'm assuming that you can see my screen again?
Yep.
I have to reboot everything. I apologize for just a moment because my whole system crashed. That was fun. I think the issue actually might be Keynote, which might be a problem. Oh, man. What a good day. All right. I'm going to try this one more time. If this fails miserably, we're going to have to figure something out.
Bryan, worst case, if you want to send Me, the presentation, we wouldn't be able to see your face, but I can go through the presentation and you can talk to it. That's horrible, but you know, it's an option.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
And you can hear me okay?
Yes, you are fine.
Okay. All right. And we're back. So anyway, I'm sure I was talking about something super important. I remember what I was talking about. I was talking about how things have shifted here. And producer means something different here today than it used to. When there's only 15 of us managing the details of a project, or maybe two, maybe one contract audio guy, a couple of developers, and an artist, was something relatively, I don't want to call it easy, it was in my wheelhouse, right? And as we grew to about 40 people and we started working on multiple projects, and we still hadn't hired another producer, so we went from 15 to 40 and from 1 or 2 projects to 4 and 5. Man, did I learn a lot. I learned a lot about prioritization. You just don't have the time to obsess over small details, and I think that's something that is one of those things you just need to learn, is that the job that you do will shift and change based on where you are, the projects that you're on, the size of the team, the size of the company. If you can learn anything about being a producer, it's being malleable, right? So many times you hear people say it's about being a facilitator and making things happen. A lot of that is true just for you, is seeing a need and filling it, letting go to an expert when you hire one. That was a lesson I had to learn. And just being able to shift and change. So this is a picture of a garden. I learned, I had a mentor a long time ago talk to me and taught me kind of about prioritization. And essentially, as you're going in, and I apologize, I've been doing a lot of gardening the last couple of weeks, so my mind is stuck on lettuce. When you're building a garden, you have to, obviously, you got to clear that area where you want to plant some things. You've got to clear it of debris and rocks. And when you go through it once, you just, you grab all the big rocks and you go back and you're like, oh, there's some rocks again. And each time you look, each time you get rid of a bigger obstacle, there's a smaller thing to pay attention to. One of the things about being a producer and about production in general is hopefully being able to identify and notice the big rocks and moving those out of the way as best you can. Sometimes that means asking for help. And then while maintaining the vision of the entire garden and knowing what it is you want to do for that whole space, still being able to kind of get down into the minutia and see the small things that still need to get out of the way. There will always be new tools and technology. There will be a new web hosting seminar thing that will hopefully work better for me in the future. There's always new tools, there's always new tech, but people are people. And Mike Acton, who's going to be doing this next month, I'm just excited for you guys to hear him, and hopefully he doesn't sound like a robot. I think he's so adamant about the people side of what we do, because it sounds so dumb and so obvious, but it really is about people. Whenever you go to like a conference, a new producer or somebody who wants to get into production will ask you about the tools you're using, and it doesn't matter if it's Fog Creek, FogBuds, HandSoft, Jira, DevTracker, Wunderlist, Excel, and then some more Excel. I mean, those things matter, but not as much as the people. One of the things that's difficult, I think, in production is that it's soft skills versus hard skills. To be clear, I think there's a great deal of value in being able to code, knowing whether you prefer box modeling or vert pulling, understanding graphic performance from a draw call and fill rate perspective, as well as a color theory perspective, and poly counts and rig bones. I think knowing those things are important, and they give you some credibility with your team. But none of that matters if you're bad with people. None of it. And so become a student of sociology, psychology, of people. A couple of books And I actually have these in my notes. I will send this on to Tristan, and I think she can probably share it, or I can maybe even post it in the chat here in a second. But I'm struggling enough just to pay attention here, so I don't want to try to mess with this at the moment. Is Managing Humans by Michael Lopp. It is it's just a really good, really funny way to talk about and listen to somebody talk about who's been in management of software engineers in particular. And just he talks about the rants and the if you've been in game development at all and you've never read this book, read it because it's cathartic, because you will know you are not alone. If you've never been in production or never been in the games industry or hoping to get into it, read it because it will give you a glimpse of what's coming. But he does it with some humor. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I know that that's an old book and it sounds dumb, but it's genius. It's absolutely genius. One of the main premises is that the greatest human need is to feel important. More than love, food, water, anything else, what we want as sentient beings is to feel important. And if you can remember that about production, about dealing with people, about when you're in that argument and somebody is fighting for a feature that they really want to get in there, and you're looking at the time frame and it's just not possible. It's important to remember that they just want to feel important. They just want to do something that's worth it, and it's way better to have somebody who's passionately fighting for something than somebody who's apathetic. Because I've had both, and it's true. You can guide passion. Apathy is just a lump. All right. One of the things, and I'm kind of bouncing around on purpose. I'm hoping to stir up some things so that when it comes to Q&A, we can kind of hit a few of these things. I'm trying to hit some stuff for people who've been in the business for a while, somebody maybe who's in AAA and doesn't do mobile, trying to hit something for some students. I'm trying to do it all, including waste 20 minutes of your time with poor audio. So one of the differences between a live team and a traditional development team, I think for a long time, and this is true both in AAA and mobile, so this isn't just mobile, a live team tends to ramp up after launch. We launched Dragon Veil. I think the team was about 8 people when we launched it. It's around that. To be honest, I'm not 100% certain. It's gone through some shifts and changes. And the team is now about 15. And so we've almost doubled the team size, and we're coming up on our 3rd year. So it's amazing to me because you see in the traditional game space and the AAA space, you see a lot of studios expand to launch and then contract, right? There's this accordion system way of kind of hiring and firing, and that's kind of not how it works in mobile, or at least that's not how it works at Backflip. For us, we put a team on something, we put it out there. If it's meant to be a live thing, a product with updates, we put it out there, we test it in the market and see how it's going to do, and then we make some decisions, right? Do we peel some people off that team because it didn't do as well as we had hoped, and put them on one of the next 9 things we've got in the queue? Or does it do something like Dragon Veil where it just kind of goes up and to the right, and we were succeeding better than even we had hoped for, and I can guarantee you more than we planned for. It's an interesting thing, a lesson to learn, that planning for success is a really important step, because I think we've all seen a few studios succeed in spite of themselves and then not be able to bear the weight of that. Another thing about live teams that I love, and I've done both. I've done some just kind of set it and forget it, where you push out like an app and you hope it does well and you never have to update it, except like when a new iOS comes out or something. And then there's stuff like Dragon Veil or Dwarven Den where we're constantly working towards that. And one of the things I love about live teams and mobile development in particular is it allows us the opportunity to A/B test content, features, UI, icons, and even price models. So it's one of those things where we've had, here at Backflip Studios, we've done free apps with advertising. We've done free apps with in-app purchase, or the kind of free-to-play freemium model that's really prevalent right now. We've done premium apps. We've done premium with IAP. We've kind of tried it all. And the truth is we still have kind of a few of those out there in the market because I think there's kind of a time and a place for each of them. But one of the things I love about a live team is it's both awesome and terrifying, is because your community can respond so fast, and you can listen to them. And because you can listen to them, there's a responsibility to some degree, right? So we, we put out. This is a funny story, totally anecdotal, and I apologize if the word slag offends anyone. But my folks are British, and a slag is kind of a slang term for a woman of ill repute, I think is a nice way to put that. And it's also a geological term. So we had this dragon come out, and we called it the slag dragon. And I raised my hand in the meeting, and I'm like, we maybe shouldn't call it that. And they say why, and I tell them, hey, in Australia, in England, and other parts of the world that speak English, that's not a nice word. And nobody in the room really believed me or had ever even heard of it. And so we marched forward, and we released the slag dragon, and we got so many emails so quickly that they were like, I play this with my son, and he shouldn't have to see that word. People were so mad. So the good news is, because it's a live team, because it's a breathing thing, our community shouted at us. And within, I think, maybe a day, it might have been the weekend, I honestly don't remember, it was not long, that turned into the Scoria Dragon, which is kind of a geological equivalent of slag. And we quit offending everybody down under and across the pond. But the lesson to learn there, and one of the things that I love about live teams, is you can respond that way. And if you can move agilely and quickly, you can build your teams and your product in a way that you can respond quickly. It's a really cool thing to watch, and you have this kind of handshaking with your community that I like. One of the other things I really like about a live team is just the control that we have over monetization. I know that sounds like an evil word to some folks, but this is a business, and I think we do a good job of not abusing our users. I think we do a really good job. In fact, there was a Kama Sutra article about Dwarven Den being too nice. I was like, because some people treat me like the devil incarnate because I work on free-to-play games, and then to see a Kama Sutra article like, man, they're just a little too nice, was both refreshing, actually, but also it was just kind of evidence of the shifting of the market. So, all right, I'm going to move on to another topic. And this is kind of for all of the people who are looking to get into production. And one of the first talks I ever gave was how I became a better producer by having worked in a kitchen. And I don't think that everybody who wants to be a producer needs to go run and start working in the kitchen as a dishwasher. But I remember having this conversation, and because I got so worked up into Scrum and Agile and sprint planning and stakeholders and meeting notes and attendees in the 22-minute meeting, and I got so very worked up and kind of overwhelmed by my own inexperience early on that I had one conversation with a guy named Jason Flick, and he changed my whole life, man, because he made me recognize in an instant that I actually already knew most of the things I needed to know. I just wasn't thinking of them right. So I'm going to take you through this really quickly. You can probably read and get it. Anybody who's worked in a restaurant just saw this and went, oh yeah. But it's important to think and understand that every project, everything that you work on, whether it's apps, games, whatever it is, it's all kind of just a big menu, right? And the way you think about it is, I think of my engineers as the chefs. These are the guys who are responsible for the backbone of the experience. They build it often from scratch, or maybe somebody else's recipe. But they're the ones who build the things, and nobody ever sees them. We keep them in the kitchen for a reason. They have foul language, but they're the chefs, right? They're doing the most of the work. They're trying to get everything timing right. They're doing a bunch of different complex things. They're trying to deal with things coming in from 17 different directions and 14 different requests and make everybody happy outside. The art team, I always think of the art team as the bartenders. So they're absolutely, they're part of the experience, right? It's a necessary part of the thing. But good art never made a bad game good, right? But good art can make a good game great. And so even though obviously art is so very, very important, it doesn't make something fun. The producer is the server, right? You deliver the food, you deliver the drinks. You are the one who handles generally the changing of money and those kinds of things. You are responsible somehow for the entire experience, even though you never make a morsel of food and you don't pour a drink. And I think it's something that you have to get used to, is that you don't have the power to create the things that you are responsible for. If that sounds like a terrible thing to you, never ever get into production. Never. Run now. But if that's okay, if you like that, if you like being responsible for the experience, you like dealing with people, you like trying to make folks happy, and you like working with multiple disciplinary teams so that you can get the bartender and the kitchen to work together to make somebody happy, then by all means. And some of the things that can happen that make this analogy, that made it really hit home for me. The kitchen sometimes messes something up. Maybe an engineer misinterprets a technical thing. Maybe he didn't understand the design or the recipe. Maybe he just missed the deadline, right? He just forgot, something happened. Hey, when's that going to be ready? 2 minutes. 2 minutes in the kitchen means 5 minutes. 5 minutes means I haven't started it yet. But you don't want to throw your kitchen under the bus, right? So you as a server, you go talk to the customer, the player. Maybe it's a publisher, maybe it's a client. The customer or the end user at that point kind of differs depending on your studio. But you've got to be able to say, hey, you know what, we ran into a snag, here's what we're going to do. I will say very often, this is a bit of a trick that I think most people know, is if the kitchen messes up, go grab something from the bar to make them happy. So for me, if the kitchen messes up, if we miss the deadline, if something is really broken, sometimes I play distraction with shiny art, and I go ask the art team for something shiny to help cover the mistake. Sometimes you can miscommunicate. Sometimes you told them the wrong thing. You entered the wrong thing in. I will tell you a lesson that I learned early, and that's fess up early and often. Nobody likes surprises. Your boss is least of all. And if you make a mistake, just own up to it. Because if you can communicate clearly and honestly with somebody and admit a mistake, it buys you a lot of leeway. That works in the kitchen or as a producer. And then I'm sure this has never happened to anyone else, but sometimes your customer asks for something different even after they've already ordered something and the kitchen has begun cooking. So that can happen. And you have to then go smooth things over with the kitchen because the customer is generally right, maybe not always. Let's see. Sorry, I have a slide out of order. That's okay. I'm doing this. There we go. Hang on one second. And right. It looks like when my stuff crashed, some stuff didn't exactly get saved. So this will be not awesome, and that's okay. So moving on from the kitchen, and again, I know I've hit a pile of different things. We're going to go to Q&A here in a little bit and hopefully kind of go over some stuff. But I just wanted to hit a bunch of different things. One, because it was kind of the first one, and I kind of wanted to see what stuck. And secondarily, I think there's a lot of different things that are interesting to different people. So I was trying to hit all things. But one of the differences between mobile and AAA, and I work with Greg Stone, who was formerly of id Software, and he and I were just talking about this last week, and he was like, it's so different and yet the same. In mobile, it's generally much shorter development cycles, right? We just released a couple of micro games, we call them. Our dev cycle was 5 weeks. That's it. Which is insane to think about. We submitted in 5 weeks, and we had to wait for approval from Apple. But we submitted games from from green light to submission in 5 weeks, and then something like Dwarven Den took like almost 2 years. Partially because halfway through we totally gutted the thing, and that is an interesting tale I'd be happy to tell if somebody wants to hear it. But it's usually much shorter, and that's both good and bad. You don't have the time to really knead over something, and sometimes I think that's good and bad, where you don't get overwrought, but also sometimes you just gotta go. Right? You just gotta make a decision. Tom Blind, who's our design director, said, "I'd rather make a wrong decision and move forward than sit here and be indecisive." And that's the kind of thinking I think that often comes to kind of mobile, and to get it out there and let the community tell you what they like and what they don't like. There's a fine line there where it can just look like laziness, right? Where you just throw something out there and see what sticks, and you don't have to work or think. But that's not what I mean. I mean, you put the best thing you know how to put out there, but you just can't be so overwrought to take too long, because the market shifts so fast. I mean, so fast. There was Angry Birds and its clones, and then there was a lot of dragons. I'm going to take some credit for that. Then there was Clash of Clans and Clash of Duty and Call of Clans, and so you've just seen all these kind of different things, and the market shifts so quick. I mean, look at Flappy Bird and all of the clones. I mean, so many clones. Everybody's just trying to fast follow, and if you take 18 months to develop every single title on mobile, you're going to struggle unless you're kind of like unless you're doing what's it called? Like Infinity Ward, no, the Epic game. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but that and it's not Infinity Gauntlet because that's totally different. But some of those games, those really high quality, they can take a little bit longer. But I don't think those are just bigger bets, right? And that's where it's kind of like AAA. Longer cycles, bigger bets. That's why you see less people rushing out to make MMOs because they're so expensive. And if those bets fail, it goes poorly, and you see stuff get shut down. So we're trying to kind of have a multi-pronged approach. And I think that that's something that you can do in mobile, is you can have tiger teams doing 5-week dev cycles, and then you can have a dedicated team spending 18 months on something really true and innovative and cool like Dwarven Den. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. And then one of the other things that was really different that I was talking to Greg about was it's so much more analytics driven. Mobile, I mean, I know way more acronyms about ARPDAO, DAU, MAU, LTV. I know what all those things mean and care about them. I'm not trying to mock them or make fun of them. I care about them. But it's different, right? Like you get in there to make a fun game, and you want to make this fun and cool, and you have to think about how to make money. I mean, it is a business, and you have to worry about marketing and discoverability, and how can you get the word out there. There's some really good games that nobody's ever played, and that's because somebody didn't think about it as a business. And then there are some really terrible games that somebody marketed the hell out of, and that they were trying to make their money back on. So there's opposite ends of that spectrum, obviously. But what we try to do here is we try to pay attention to the analytics and have it inform what we're going to do, right? So we listen to our customer service department. We have a customer service department now. When we started, we had one QA guy. We had no QA guys. We had an intern that was kind of QA. Now I have a QA department and a customer service department. It's so weird. But we listen to our customer service department and our community. We listen to what the numbers and the analytics tell us, and we listen to our game designers, and we try to find kind of the Venn diagram of where those things connect with what we're going to do next. The way we think about features and the way we think about adding new things is I think about them in three major ways. I think about them from as each one affects retention, acquisition, and monetization. These are kind of some of the key things that we pay attention to in mobile, because I'm wondering, how am I going to get people to play my free game? How am I going to keep the lights on? And then how am I going to keep those players, right? How am I going to keep them because it's fun, not how am I going to keep them because they feel stuck, right? You don't want it to feel like work. But those are kind of some of the things that we look at, and we have a lot of analytics in each of those things. Specifically in Dragonvale, we pay attention to a lot of that stuff and see what we're wanting, and we poll our users. So that is most of what I had prepared. I know that it was a bit scattershot, but that was, like I said, about 9 times totally on purpose. I hope that you've been able to hear me the entire time, that I haven't just been talking into the wind. And now I figure it's a good time for Q&A. So if Keith or Tristan want to unmute themselves and maybe help me out here for a second, that would be excellent.
Keith, do you want it, or do you want me to go ahead and do it?
Well, so I just rejoined. Are you hearing me all right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastico. So let me try and catch up here. All right, 27 pages of, oh my gosh.
Oh, you're starting to go out again, Keith. So I'll do the Q&A.
Thank you.
So there was one, I'm going to mute him.
Yep.
There was one question. They wanted to know what was the first book that you had recommended. There was How to Win Friends and Influence People. What was the first one?
Oh, the first one was Managing Humans.
All right, there you go, everybody. And I will get the names.
Lopp.
By Michael Loft.
By Michael Lopp.
Lopp.
Actually, I'm going to. Where is that question? Don't see it.
You can just type it in the chat.
I'm going to just type it in the chat.
Because I replied to some of these, and so I don't know if it'll let you reply to them again.
There we go.
Devin says in response to your bartending and restaurant analogy that the customer is always right, but that doesn't mean they are necessarily bright.
Absolutely. It's and they're not even always right. They're just usually right. And it's always important to recognize that they pay your bills. But yeah, it's you can't completely and utterly ignore them. We try to really strike a balance between listening to our community, but you can't also just you can't crowdsource design, right? So they're not always right, but it is important to listen to them. And if you keep seeing a trend, then it probably makes sense to respond. We just released a new feature called the Dragonarium, and one of my favorite comments was somebody said, "I didn't even know I wanted this, and I love it." That made us feel really good as designers and as a team, because we were like, yes, but then we also listened to them and try to give them stuff that they want.
I apologize in advance if I wreck anybody's name. I do want to attempt to pronounce them. Sadhira asks, how much time or days do you have to wait for the next decision, like chucking the game or continuing with next steps?
That kind of varies on a game-by-game basis. So, like I said, we've got our Tiger teams kind of on our micro games, and those decisions, I mean, they've got to come fast and furious, because we've got like it's like a 5 to 7 week dev cycle. So you can imagine, anecdotally, my wife and I, we were only engaged for about 4.5 months. And I both think that was genius and sometimes frustrating, because you didn't have time to double guess yourself, right, or second guess yourself. So sometimes, and then on a product like on Dwarven, like I mentioned, we almost killed that thing about 7 times. I mean, that thing had a gun to its head about 7 different times, and we're like, we should kill this. Should we kill this? Maybe we should kill this. And so for us, as far as waiting, because we're our own publisher, it's relatively quick. All those people are here internal and in-house. So as long as everybody's in town, we can get those decisions within a day or two. Sometimes maybe a week if somebody's out of town. That's kind of that's on an internal making decisions basis. Occasionally, when we put something out, like we soft launch in Canada, often we'll put an app out in Canada just to see how people, well, first of all, make sure that it's stable, that our servers work. We love our Canadian beta testers to the north. Thank you so much. We've actually started putting stuff out in the UK and Australia just to give those guys a break. But we put some stuff out there, and sometimes we're paying attention to data as well, right? So we made some guesses and we put some stuff out there, and it's not doing what we want to do. And so then we have to determine, do we have a plan B, or do we kill it? If you talk to some of the guys at Supercell or Rovio or King, those guys kill a half brick. Half brick kills like 2 games for every one they ship. I mean, that's, again, I'm totally making that up, but I know they kill a lot of games, and some of that's just based on data. They take their best shot. Sometimes it doesn't stick.
Milena asks, how innovative can you get in a mobile game considering players and time of production?
I saw a GDC talk once with the composer for Nintendo music, and it was just him and a grand piano in this GDC conference room, and it was amazing. And he talked about the boundaries that he was given on an 8-bit system sometimes forced him to be better. So I think there's some really natural obstacles to storytelling, because in a linear story, you kind of want to follow a thread, and on a mobile game you have to be infinitely interruptible. So it's not even just the time of production or the players. I think I consider myself kind of a hardcore gamer, or I used to, but I play a lot of mobile games now. Part of that is obviously my job, right? But part of that is it's just time. Like, I don't have 100 hours to pour into the next Final Fantasy game before I get out of the tutorial. I just don't have that kind of time. So I don't think that necessarily all mobile players are less core gamers. I think sometimes it's just gamers with less time. But there's obvious limitations on a device, right? As the devices get more sophisticated, we're seeing those walls kind of break down a bit. But I think as far as innovative goes, I think you can do some crazy cool stuff. Like, I mean, there are some really innovative mobile experiences out there. I thought The Room was amazing. Such a cool puzzle. Sword and Sorcery. And there's like 15 that I'm thinking of. And then there's a lot of not, right? I think you get a lot of both. And I think really what it comes down to, Melina, is it really comes down to what choices you want to make. I think that you can be an indie mobile dev and make some really innovative and cool experiences. You just have to recognize you got to know your target, you got to know your niche, you got to know what you're trying to accomplish, and then sometimes you just have to know your time frame. You know, how innovative can I get in 5 weeks? I don't know, but I know that we could get considerably more innovative in something like Dwarven Den that took longer.
Okay, we've got 6 minutes before your hard stop, so let's do these last 2 questions. If you have other additional questions, throw them in the box and maybe we can get Bryan to answer them offline later. Siadali asks, what is a good way to approach analytics for companies that are starting?
That is a great question. So there's some really cool third-party things out there that you can use that will handle a lot of that for you. I will say from a code perspective, one of the things that we try to do is from a design and code perspective, my designers and my engineers, before we release either a feature or even a game, we spend a day or two talking about the things we would like to track, and then we have to make sure that there are hooks for them in the game, right? So when we when we started Dragonvale, let me be really honest, we were wildly unsophisticated. I mean, wildly unsophisticated. We were like, what are people doing? I don't know, liking it. Now we know, I know what level you quit. I know when the last time I saw you was. I know what dragons you were breeding for. We can know those things about you based on just player behavior. We don't know those things about you as an individual. We just know our players do these things. And to cover my butt legally, we only do that for people who are 13 or above because we age gate everybody because we make sure that we're compliant with GoPro regulations. But that being said, we try to know what our players like and don't like based on their actual behavior. We also do some A/B testing as well. But yeah, for us it's making sure there are hooks on all the buttons, making sure we understand, and then Flurry. If you install like Flurry, it tracks a bunch of these things for you. So sessions per day, length of session, so session length, level of user, that kind of stuff. So it's relatively easy to do some very simple stuff, but anything you want to do kind of more innovative or more deep, you have to kind of put hooks in for the game. I hope that answers that.
Okay. Final question, unless you answer it quick. As a producer, Devin asks, as a producer, how do you see the mobile dev environment evolving in terms of small, free, ad-based, and 99-cent games made by small teams, 1 to 3 people, medium-sized games, and large games with high production value like Infinity Blade, Final Fantasy, etc.?
Whew, that is a big question to answer quickly.
You have 4 minutes.
Dev environment evolving. I see a lot of people moving to Unity, to be honest. I think Unity, UDK, I think those guys introduced a new pricing model. Well, I know that they introduced a new pricing model at the last GDC to make things more affordable for smaller teams. So I think you're going to see more and more people do that because these technologies are relatively easy to use. They have a huge team. When we started, we had our own internal engine team, and we built our own thing because we had to. We wanted it to be quick and fast, and we felt like Unity at the time was a bit bloated. Now we've started to move and actually release some things on Unity because they've gotten better because they have a whole team for it, and they could move faster than my 2 guys, really. So as far as the dev environment, I see a lot of people moving towards toolkits like UDK and Unity. As far as the small free ad-based 99-cent games, those are all still, everybody says like free to play is the only thing that you can do, but then something like Minecraft comes along and still continues to do well, Infinity Blade. I think it just, different games suit different audiences, and they're going to target different people. One of the reasons that free to play does so well is because they're casual. The casual audience, everybody has a phone in their pocket. People who play 2 hours a day on their phone don't think of themselves as gamers. So we're starting to see, that's why you see free-to-play doing that. We're also seeing things, you're still seeing games do well at the 99 cents, the $1.99, the $2.99. So I think we're going to see, from a dev environment, we're going to see things evolve, I think, to more people using those tools because they've made them available for more people. And as far as production going, as a producer, how do I see that happening? Small teams, big teams, I think it's just software development. It's about getting things out of the way. And I think, like I was talking about with Unity, I think that helps get some stuff out of the way. So it was kind of a complex question, Devin. I hope I kind of answered it.
Okay, well, we are up against your hard time. Devin says yes, that was a good answer. Sadhira, I will get your question to Bryan and see if he can respond to that to you personally after the session. He has his hard stop. Bryan, if you have any last things that you want to say before you take off?
I just want to say it's weird talking to a computer screen where I can't see everybody, but I appreciate everybody's patience. Thank you so much for sticking around. I hope I was even remotely entertaining and or enlightening. And if you have any questions at all, you can email me. I meant to put this up on a slide. I apologize. You can email me at bryanmash, BRYANMASH, at backflipstudios.com.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending. Thanks for putting up with our little glitch in the middle. Don't forget that every Wednesday the IGDA does host a webinar like this on different topics. The production, if you're interested in production, it is the fourth Wednesday of every month. You can get information from igda.org/webinars. I will follow up. We will follow up with you after the webinar, provide some of the resources that Bryan mentioned, and we will shoot you his contact info. And Satira, I will try to get that question answered for you. Thanks, everybody.